doclqj here. I am the owner and operator of Familial Bonds Psychotherapy and Consultation Services. I am a psychotherapist and life coach extraordinaire, spiritual wellness, healing, and holistic wellness expert. I love helping people become one, achieve autonomy, and understand how to bring themselves into um, an overarching understanding about life, mental health, and understanding themselves and other people that are connected to them. Um, Today, I'm going to do this thing live. I'm going to try and track where we go. Okay. And try and make notes as we go. Doing a live video is sometimes really difficult because it's kind of hard to follow and go everywhere you need to go. Let's put it that way. I'm going to start with a basic conceptualization because I know that this video will be viewed by the layperson. A lot of people misuse terminology, and I know that for people who are non-clinical, who are not clinicians, who are not mental health providers, who do not understand the clinical term when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder or NPD or personality disorder in general. They do not understand, you do not understand the terms that I will be using. So I will start off with a basic understanding or explanation of the terms. Okay. So I will explain the basics of personality disorder. Or so we'll start with disorder, mental health disorders in general. Okay. Because I do seek on this platform to dispel the myths that kind of stigmatize mental health and wellness in general. The reason that people stay away from taking care of themselves, right? From a mental and emotional health, behavioral health, cognitive health standpoint. People stay out of a mental health and behavioral health clinic because they're like, there is nothing wrong with me. Let me start there. Okay. Nothing is wrong with anyone, right? Who is seeking help. It means that everything is right with you. It means that you understand that everybody is human. And because we are human, we think, we feel, we do, we are. And because we think, we feel, we do, we are, we seek help, right? Wait, turn this music down. I do not own rights to the music that you may hear playing in the background because it's mine. I'm going to have it playing softly in the background. It helps me to focus, achieve autonomy, mental acuity, keeps me balanced. Okay. Jazz does that for me. So, in keeping myself grounded, I, like I mentioned, will stay on task. If you guys want to join the chat, if you have any specific questions for me, if I cover a topic, if I say something and you do not understand me, do list your questions and then I'll get to them at the end. So, to start with the basic understanding, right? Personality disorders are pervasive disorders or pervasive issues that people experience that cause clinically significant distress or marked distress or make a person off kilter from their typical or day-to-day functioning, right? So let's say for the vast majority of your life in the culture that you are raised in, the environment, right? Every day you go about, the people who are raised with you, your family members, your friends, people around you, everybody is accustomed to you being a certain way. And then today, you wake up and you're not that way anymore. You're different. right? And you start to move differently. You start to see things differently. You start to disengage or not be as involved as you were usually. And now you're jumpy, right? Something is different about you. And so, because you are different, you start to do things different in your day to day. And that causes you to no longer focus like you used to. That's what we mean by a different type of functioning. And because you can't focus now, your scores on your tests and exams are lower because it's causing you to no longer have the same cognitive acuity that you used to have. It's causing a clinically significant declination in your focus and acuity. And so that would lead to something that we call clinical impairment. So that would lead to a clinician who's doing an assessment to say, okay, this is a disorder. When we look at narcissistic personality disorder and any other personality disorder or deficits in mental and cognitive functioning, we're looking at something that causes clinical significant impairment. Okay. Narcissistic personality disorder and all personality disorders typically are diagnosed when a person is in early adulthood. Now, some personality disorders can be diagnosed in childhood, the latter part, with the exception of antisocial personality disorder. That kind of manifests as conduct disorder in childhood, however, or in adolescence. But that's the only one that we can't, under any circumstances, diagnose in childhood at all. But when we look at narcissistic personality disorder, we're looking for grandiosity, right? And what I mean by grandiosity, by definition, it's a heightened sense of importance. But when I go back to that societal expectation piece, right? Everybody in society, especially when we talk about American society, where the word narcissist is overused for the vast majority of society, people feel a high sense of importance anyway. There is a sense of entitlement that is a natural part of everything. But narcissistic personality disorder is a pattern of grandiosity or a need for admiration, but also a lack of empathy. So people who are narcissistic, they don't have empathy for anyone or anything. They simply do not have it. It does not exist at all. So if one were to lose a loved one around them, they would not be empathetic. There would be no sense of, I feel sorry for your loss. They wouldn't feel sorry for their own loss and they wouldn't fake it either. Okay. So the affect simply is not there. The only thing that matters is them. There are a very, very low amount of people in the world who are truly narcissistic. Okay. And so oftentimes people get the two kind of misconstrued. There are a lot of people, however, that are histrionic or borderline personality disorder. I think that's kind of, the ones that are similar. Borderline personality disorder is kind of like a pervasive pattern of unstable relationships. And so with those people, their affect is unstable and it may mimic narcissistic traits. So they may look like they're not empathetic. Sometimes they're not empathetic, right? But sometimes they may be empathetic. And so when people look at people who are narcissistic, because they have that high sense of, of grandiosity, people who are borderline personality, sometimes they have a high sense of grandiosity, have a high sense of self, but sometimes they have a low sense of self as well. Narcissists, they have a high sense of self all the time. They always feel important. They always have a high sense of, or a high need to feel important. They have a heightened sense of self all the time. And it's always on a 10. It's never off a 10 as far as like what's on the surface. What's on the inside, you would never be able to see ever. Like ever. You will never see them shed a tear. ever, 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 because they have zero empathy, zero emotion. There is nothing there. Okay. If you wanted to say zero or flat affect, that is what a true narcissist would really look like. And I think the reason that they are often misconstrued is because, I don't know, people are typically looking for the person that has a high sense of self and that self-importance piece, and the person that's kind of showboating and that kind of stuff, which is more of the histrionic personality disorder. The person that's portraying to be the person that's extra in American society, right? They want to be out there. They're putting themselves out. They're attention seeking, right? So the attention seeking behavior that is consistent is more of a histrionic behavior. And sometimes you see that in borderline personality as well. And so the difference in the two is that the grandiosity is only the grandiosity is the only characteristic that's consistent in narcissistic personality disorder. But it has to be accompanied by zero empathy. Zero. So they cannot have affect for anyone. So there is no let me be warm to you. Let me be kind to you. There is no, if you are kind to me, if you give me what I want, then I can be loving to you. If you give me what I need, then I can show you some level of empathy. I can feel sorry for you. I can feel sorry for me. If I lose something, then I'm going to cry. There is some sense of emotion here because there is no sense of emotion that exists in a narcissist. And that's the one thing that people do not understand. People see the word grandiose, high sense of self, and they associate that with people, and they say that, okay, well, oh, I was dating a narcissist because they were so full of themselves, and that's simply not true. And so I want to debunk that piece first, okay? And so American society has an overuse of the word narcissist simply because they think that people who are full of themselves are narcissists, which they simply are not. The vast majority of those people may be histrionic, they may be borderline, but they're simply not narcissists. And I'm sorry. The clinical significance is not there because most of those people are empaths. A lot of them are, you know, and a lot of those people have sympathy and empathy for the people that are close to them in their lives. A lot of those people have friends. A lot of those people have people that they genuinely love and they have emotions. And a narcissist simply does not have those things. They do not exist. And for people who are clinicians, who are giving people a narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis, differential diagnosis in the DSM-5 gives you all that you need to give other diagnostics, you know, to those people. Anyway, so we've covered that part. I'm going to make some notes for myself. So let's talk about the histrionic personality piece, okay? So people who have histrionic personality disorder, they have an excessive emotionality. They're very, very emotional people, and they're the ones who are attention seeking. And those people are more in alignment with the vast majority of people who think they're dating a narcissist. Those people are histrionic personality disorder people. They seek attention. They have a high sense of self as well, but they also have an emotional side. Okay. Borderline people are the people that kind of have unstable emotions, unstable self-image issues, whether it's the body or their sense of self. And sometimes they may appear a little bit narcissistic as well, because sometimes they have a very grandiose sense of self, but there are other times where they have a very low sense of self, and they may be back and forth between suicidal ideation and depression. And then other times they may feel very full of themselves and feel like they're grand. They feel like they're great, right? Um, then other times they may feel like they're at their lowest point. Um, so their relationships typically struggle. They struggle when it comes to friendships, to family, and that kind of stuff. Avoidant personality people typically have social inhibitions. You may see those people kind of struggle when it comes to connecting with other people because they have trust issues for the most part. They kind of mimic your people who are kind of schizotypal. Um, and what schizotypal people are different from schizoid personality, because schizoid personality types of people, those types of personality disorders are more of the people who do not care about whether or not they have relationships with other people. Okay, they're disconnected from society and they really don't care. It's like, I don't have any friends, and you know what, I really don't care whether or not I have friends or not. you know um and then the other one that is very, very similar to a narcissistic personality disorder type of person is going to be your OCPD. And they're really, really similar only in the sense that they have to have perfection with everything and they have to have things their way. That is the only thing that I see very, very similar with narcissistic personality disorder people. Because the other thing about narcissistic people is that narcissists are, they lack empathy, but they also, with that grandiose sense of self, they do have to have things their way. And because they're very arrogant, okay? They're arrogant, they have to have things their way. They have zero empathy, zero. That means they have zero emotion and affect towards other people. But the perfection in that lens of their life is it. So the OCPD people, those are obsessive compulsive personality disorders. So those people have their picture of perfection in their lives and in their systems and in their circle. So if you work with these people, they have a picture of what projects will look like, right? And if you do anything outside of these pictures of the project, these people will explode on you. Not only will they explode, they will take over the workload and they will correct the work. Even if they end up staying at work 12, 13, 14 hours and not being reimbursed for the work done, they will make this picture perfect. They won't have to be compensated. The same thing goes with their interpersonal relationships. People who are narcissistic are the same exact way. They need to be acknowledged for the perfect people that they are. And the reason that they lack the empathy is because for them, they do so much work, right? That even if you were to acknowledge them, you couldn't acknowledge them enough because they do so much work that your small acknowledgement is just an inkling of what they deserve. And so for them, it's like, oh, you said that I'm great. I'm better than great. That high sense of self, you're not giving me enough of what I really deserve. Okay. So you can never give me what I'm worth. You don't know my worth. You're not good enough to give me what I'm worth. And so that is what's similar with the OCPD. They have this picture of perfection that they have to have, and whether they are reimbursed for their time and their work that they've kind of put into a project, they're going to stay the course. Now, I will say there are some pros to having a a true narcissist on your team, because they have that very, very high sense of self. Okay. You can use that to your advantage. That high sense of self, that very grandiose sense of self, that picture that they have painted of themselves being great at what they do and being great all around, that picture of perfection, use that to your advantage. Allow them to be great in the way that they see their greatness. Allow them to paint that picture. Allow them to work alone. If what they do alone and that greatness that they aspire to create really is great, even if it's only in their perception, they're doing all the work. kind of creates less work for you. If that OCPD person that you work with, if they're really obsessive compulsive in their personality, let that personality be a benefit to you. It creates less work for you. It's more of a benefit for you. Look at the positive things. Look at the positive things that can come out of you being affiliated with these people. There are not a lot of people who are truly narcissist. Okay? There are a lot of people who, however, are histrionic personality types. And I really think that those are the people that people typically identify as narcissists, because the people who are truly narcissists, they do not have empathy. Like I said, they don't have a sense of emotion at all. They don't have affect. They do not have those things. Those things do not exist for them. So, for those of you who overuse that term, and these are persistent and pervasive patterns of behavior, that means that you cannot turn them on and off. Okay? It's not an on and off switch. These are personality disorders. So, these are imprints of personality. These are who these people are. Okay? And so understanding is everything. To truly understand a thing, to have a clear cut understanding of how NPD or narcissistic personality disorder really works, is to help you really insight and evoke a clear movement within yourself and your system of how to deal with people who are narcissistic, and even how to deal with people who are histrionic, because histrionic personality disorder is a real thing and it's very difficult to deal with. I think people who are empaths, they sometimes come in contact with people who are narcissistic, and I think they connect well with them, because on the inside of a person that is narcissistic, there is a core of the same elements that's inside of a person who is more borderline personality disorder. And that is that uncertainty. Okay. That is that instability. And so they may need that person to kind of feed into, giving them what they need as far as that emotional security. Right. However, I do feel that because they are incapable of giving or feeding into or providing emotion, providing empathy, and providing affect to another person, they can definitely be toxic people. So if you ever really run into a narcissist, you will really know it. And you won't be able to come back and live in a emotionally effective way, and to truly be able to talk about and tell that story, because it's not one that you will be able to live with in an emotional, comfortable, or stable way. Okay. But like I said before, if you are a person who is with a histrionic personality disorder person and you have misinterpreted that as a narcissist, then you can deal with that as well. And you can help balance yourself. Use that to your advantage. Learn how to deal with and live with and complement that type of personality. Histrionic personality people are oftentimes what we misinterpret as narcissists. And those are the people that are full of themselves. They may mimic that grandiose or high sense of self, but they do have an empathetic side. The narcissist, again, has zero empathy. They have zero emotion. They do not cry. They do not feel. They do not have emotion. They simply do not. There is no affect there, because the empathy, the emotional expressive side is removed, because that is where the deficit lies. That is what makes them a narcissist. And for them, everyone is the enemy, simply because the envy that's within them is only because that high sense of self has to have something to feed it. Okay? The envy only exists because in order for that high sense of self to have something to compete with, there has to be something on the other side. And that says that people want to be me. And because they want to be me, I have to be greater. If you kind of get that. Okay. So if you're looking or seeking to understand or identify a narcissist, that's kind of what you're looking for. I hope that this has been a little bit more helpful and kind of helped iron out the things that are kind of, you know, helping or promoting people to misidentify narcissistic personality disorder from histrionic, and to help you guys to understand better the histrionic personality disorder so that you can kind of see what you're really dealing with. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with a person that's very, very full of themselves and still kind of promoting themselves above all others. But the most important thing I think that you guys can take from this is this. If you're trying to look at personality deficits or we're looking for a disorder, the main thing that you want to look for is going to be something that causes a clinical distress or impairment in daily or day-to-day functioning of a person. So not something that's just like a on and off switch. Okay, but something that causes clinical distress. And typically is something that you would have noticed in a person's adolescence phase of life, but they also would have been able to be something or the same symptoms that you would have noticed in their early adulthood. But with the exception of antisocial personality disorder, it can be diagnosed typically in early childhood, or should I say, early adolescence. We would typically see the manifestations of personality disorders or deficits manifest in early adulthood because that's when we see people typically struggle the most with identity crisis. That's when we come into our full fruition as human beings because we're kind of put out there, or fed to the wolves. Um, but so, at any rate, if you guys have not already shared some of the videos and liked and subscribe to this channel, do that so that you guys can kind of elevate, educate, and spread the word so that you can kind of help to destigmatize the stigma that's kind of associated with mental health and behavioral health and wellness. But I'm here if you need me. And if you have additional questions or anything like that, you are free to type those in the comment section. If you are a clinician and you need a supervision group, consultation group, whatever, I do have good links to supervision as well. Type that here. Yeah, that's all I've got. Later days, folks. Take care.